third-party testing approved by players, which includes testing of everyone who comes into contact with the players, testing twice a week. Automatic red shirts for players who miss competition due to positive COVID-19 tests or quarantines. Seems fair. Like to see the players using their voices. We got a new panel up here now. We've got Bomani Jones here with us and Paul Finebaum and Domonique Foxworth still here with us. All right, Bo, I want to start with you because you wrote a really interesting piece for The Undefeated. I know you talked to a lot of the Pac-12 players about their concerns and some of the Big Ten players. So talk to me, what impact could these demands have on the complexion of college sports moving forward?
Well, I think in the short run, what these players actually may do, if you want there to be a college football season, then I think you need to be rooting for them, because what they're asking for, the necessary safety protocols that you have to have in order to have a season. What they want to have is some kind of uniformity across the board within their conferences about what is going to be done to protect the players. But also, one big thing from the Big Ten, and you just mentioned it right there, is an objective standard for when you shut this down so that everybody's not just playing this willy-nilly. So I think in the short run, that's one thing that can happen. What I think has happened in the long run, though, is COVID-19 has laid bare just how important these players are, and they realize this. The fact that people that they think care about them, and most of the guys I've talked to believe that their coaches care about them and are doing the best they can in order to keep things as safe as possible. If even under those circumstances, they feel like what they have is not good enough, they're looking at this and saying these people are not just willing to endanger our lives in order to play, but they're also endangering the lives of the coaches in order to play. But they now understand how important they are to making this whole engine go. And that's the part that can change the complexion of this, is that all this time off and everything that's happened surrounding this has really put players in touch with something they really hadn't thought of that much, which is just how important they are. They live in a world where people tell them how replaceable they are, and now they realize, it ain't that easy to replace us.
And Bomani, the most extraordinary thing I thought, in addition to all the great points you made, that in this manifesto from the Big Ten players, they call out the NCAA. They flat out say the NCAA has failed to lead during this pandemic. I mean, think about this for a second. 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids calling out the people that make millions of dollars. Mark Emmert makes almost $3 million a year to run intercollegiate athletics. I mean, it's absolutely criminal the way the NCAA has failed to lead, has failed to really offer any reasonable guidelines to these young people. And not only that, but the people at these universities, the athletic directors, the presidents, and the commissioners have also failed to call the NCAA out. So, I mean, to me, there are so many fascinating parts of this, but young people are acting like adults, and the adults are acting like nursery school kids.
And I think it's important that we acknowledge that, I'll get back to you in a second, but we acknowledge that these players are taking extraordinary risk in this moment to rectify a system that us adults have allowed to perpetuate going forward. Like, they're taking extraordinary risk, and it brings to mind how much we have kind of celebrated Colin Kaepernick for what he's given up to bring attention to issues that concern America at large. I think that these players are putting a lot at risk, not just their health by showing up to play, but they're putting their careers at risk. And it's important that all of us, particularly the media that are in these locations where the teams are, keep an eye on what happens to the players whose names are attached to this, because I would be thoroughly surprised, given what I know about college athletics, if those guys, if something does not happen to them, when we look away, when things start to get back to normal, we start looking at other things, we need the media in that area and the players in those areas to be aware how those guys are going forward and if they're going to be protected going forward, because they're trying to right a wrong. In the same way that we celebrate Colin Kaepernick for trying to right wrongs, we need to celebrate these guys for doing the same thing by bringing attention to these issues and ensure that what happened to Colin Kaepernick does not happen to these players going forward. Bo, what were you going to say?
Well, no, I'll say off of that if there's a change that I hope comes from this substantively, it really needs to come from media and the way that we cover these things. Because something that really frustrated me was over the weekend, while you're hearing players from Washington State saying, I've been cut from the team, you had guys calling the SID and just taking the SID's word for it about what happened. What seemed like, as much as Washington State said they did not cut the players, what the players were saying on the other end was they've done everything but say that they've cut us. We've been removed from the group chat. We can't come to the facility anymore. A lot of that seemed to be caused, I think, by a lack of communication between the two sides. But people who cover college football do a little bit too much taking the word of the schools, too much taking the word of the coaches, too much taking the word of the sports information directors. Now is not a time to do this. Now is a time to talk to players. Now is the time to find out what their circumstances are and what they're going through.
I think in that situation, it's in part fear and selfishness from those people, because they understand that it's important to have a good relationship, frankly, with the SID, or good relationship with the coach in the long term, more than it is to have a good relationship with the players or to necessarily do the right thing in those situations. So, like, I think that it requires bravery for the kids to stand up in this moment, but it's also going to require some bravery, for the media members in those situations to expose the wrongs that are taking place.
Yeah, you know what, though? I don't even know if it's necessary.
Hold on, let me jump in here.
Oh, good.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, the one thing I was going to say is maybe it requires some measure of bravery, but I'll tell you right now, if you call a school and come to them with some hard questions and say, let me know something, you'd be amazed at how responsive a lot of those schools are right now, because they know that the information in a lot of ways is on the side of the players. I have actually found these schools to be far more receptive than I thought they would be under these circumstances. Like, as much as people want to maintain the relationships that they have with people, they got to do a much better job of realizing that the most vulnerable class of people in sports is the college athlete. And somebody's got to be, not so much just be looking out for them in the name of their safety, but looking out for them in the name of the truth, because that's what we're supposed to be doing in this job.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.